So what's your name?
My name is Herman Jr.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in Caldwell County in 1941.
Where'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up?
I pretty much grew up in the Lenore area. When I was about 18, I moved into the Union Grove area, down on the basically in the city of Lenore.
Where have you lived? Other than
Winston-Salem for a while. I lived in Winston-Salem for a while. And my military basically I spent the majority of my time in Caldwell County. But basically I spent the majority of my time in Caldwell County.
Have you had? What jobs?
Well, I've had a lot of jobs. When I was in high school, when I was in high school, well, actually my first job was a bag boy. Well, actually my first job was a bag boy, which was at the Thrift Food Center, which was the first job I had, and that was carrying groceries. First job I had, and that was carrying groceries out, was stocking stores. And then in high school, I had a part-time job. In high school, I had a part-time job where I was responsible for grinding coffee. And then after that, I got out of the military. When I got out of the military, had a job for about a month. Had a job for about a month in the furniture. And then after that, I went to work for a small loan company. About 6 months. Worked there. And then I went to work for a bank. And then I went to work for the rest of my career was 40 years. The rest of my career.
What do you do now for a living? Are you retired?
Well, I officially retired. Well, I officially retired, and now several years ago. And I don't do this for a living. I don't do this for a living. Electrical work. I do some electrical work and have my electrical license.
Can you describe your early childhood home? Well,
my early childhood. During my very early years. My dad was in the Second World War. My dad was in the Second World War. And West College Avenue in a house there. West College Avenue in a house there. Down in the Hudson area off the Walnut, and I stayed with them. My grandparents, my mother and I stayed with them. And then after that, while he was in the war, and then after that, Street pretty much lived in the Virginia Street area out there. And then, as I said earlier, out there. And then we moved down on the Union Grove Road. We moved down on the Union Grove Road when I was about 17 years.
Did you have any brothers and sisters that? Did you have any brothers and sisters that?
I had one brother. He was 10 years younger. He was 10 years younger than I am. And you know, when there's a 10-year difference, you don't have a lot of things in common. Growing up, you're pretty much a babysitter rather than a sibling that's a friend. So after I got out of the military, he and I enjoyed it because he had grown up. We enjoyed the more mature things. Unfortunately, he only lived to age 42. He passed away at 42. Left me without any siblings.
How extensive was your childhood education?
Well, my education was typical high school education. It was very good back in those years because we had a lot of good teachers, and we had very few distractions because it's kind of hard to remember. There wasn't a lot of TV and things that are commonplace.
What was your favorite job that you?
Well, I love banking. That was really I thoroughly enjoyed. I had a passion for it. Spent 40 years in it. It provided me with a lot of educational opportunities, travel opportunities, things of that nature. So that was my favorite.
What did you do as a banker?
Well, I started out at the lowest level of banking. Back then, I was working in what was called the installment. That's where they make automobile loans, things of that nature. And I was the person that repossessed the cars, people that didn't pay their bills. And from that, I moved up to the assistant manager in the installment loan department, First Union National Bank. I worked there. Also transferred to Winston-Salem. I worked down there as the assistant manager of that installment loan department. And then had an opportunity to go to work in the savings and loan business. I went to work in that business. Worked in there for 20 years. And I was able to move up the ladder to the point of being vice president, and I was on the board of directors. Ended up selling that bank, and I went to work for the bank that bought us was Sun Trust, and I became the first vice president. Worked for them for 9 years, retirement. So I kind of grew up in banking, and it's kind of hard to fathom now. But I grew up in a time before computer, and even in banking. We would have to do our own calculations, ledger cards. We have to compute it by hand. We had to do a lot of that. There were credit cards, and I was in charge of introducing the credit card in Lenore, First Union National Bank back then, and it was called First Bank. And the merchants then were very reluctant to offer that credit card because they had to pay a 5% fee on every purchase, and they didn't want to pay that fee, of course, and they could envision the fact that down the road they wouldn't be able to operate without credit cards. You can imagine no credit cards, wouldn't be in business. So I got to see it first in that, and I got to see it first. Banks going on computers and things. So I witnessed a lot of changes in the banking industry in 4 years.
Did you serve in the military?
Yes, I served in the military in the early 1960 through the early part of 1963. And I was in an organization called the Army Security Agency, which is just a branch of the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency. And all the stuff that we did was classified. And we were sworn not to discuss the things that we did after our military service. But I had a top secret clearance and was exposed to things that a lot of people never have an opportunity to be exposed to. We were being stationed in the Philippines. I was over there for about 30 months, and we were in intelligence gathering business. Basically, that's what the CIA now we did then. And this was prior to the Vietnam War. Vietnam War started shortly after 1963, and of course we were pretty busy trying to gather intelligence and things of that nature.
Did you learn anything while in the military?
Well, in the military as such, you just have the normal basic training. In the military as such, you just have the normal basic training per se. My job military weapons, we'd have to do the normal fighting, qualify as far as once a year and all military weapons. We'd have to do the normal kind of ironical that you asked once a year back then. But again, this is it was many years ago. Ironical that you asked that. I studied in karate. This is Philippines. Many years ago, karate over here. But I studied karate originated in Okinawa before anybody ever heard of karate over here. And karate, Filipinos originated in Okinawa, and the Philippines. I enjoyed that while I was over there. That was Filipinos learned from Okinawa. Had to do every other day. I'd go down while I was over there. We didn't do it at the gym. We did it at the place. Had to do every other day. I'd go down to the. And we didn't do it at the gym. We did it at the karate while I was there. And it was a different type karate. And I attained what you see here in the United States. And it was a different. In the United States, they have what's called form. What you see here in the United States, where you do different moves. In the United States, they have what's called form. But over there, they taught you the where you do different moves and different forms. But over there, they taught you the deadly type in an area that how you can take their life. So it actually kind of a different situation in an area that can take their life. To this day, I still work out. Kind of a different situation. Practice my karate and do that. To this day, I still work out.
The living conditions that you worked in?
Practice my karate. My living conditions were very nice. I worked.
Can you describe the living conditions that you worked in?
90% of my work was in a building. My living conditions were very nice. I worked 90% of my work was in a building. A big 8-foot fence. The building had no windows. The building, and they kept guards on it at all times. And only those people that had the proper clearance. A big 8-foot fence around the building, and they kept guards on it at all times. Pretty hot in the Philippines. Only those people that had the proper clearances could come and go. One of the good points, we had generators. It's pretty hot in the Philippines, so it would go off. The building was pretty dark in a building with no windows. So one of the good points we had generators as backup power. But when the power go to sleep real quick. Pretty dark in a building with no windows.
So I interesting stories about your
deployment pretty quickly there. So learned how to go to sleep real quick.
Well, do you have any interesting stories about your deployment?
There's a little bit of a lesson. I don't have any stories that I can talk about on my deployment. I think but as a little bit early on in the military service, I don't have any stories that I can talk growing about up in Caldwell County. But I didn't think about it early on. But all of my military service were friends that I had grown up in Caldwell County. They were friends. I didn't think about it at the time, but all of my friends kind of had a very limited that I had grown outlook on things. So I went in the military and I was thrown in from people from all over the United States. I had a very limited. I was sent to Fort Evans, Massachusetts. So I went in the military and I was thrown in from people from all over the United States. And on the weekends, I was sent to Fort Evans, Massachusetts, having a big time, and I was just sitting. And I got up there and I began to look around. What in the world on the weekends? And then I realized everybody was gone and having a big time, and I was just sitting around doing nothing. And I got there, what in the world's wrong early on? That and then I realized you need to be afraid. I wasn't making any effort to make any friends. So I think the main thing that I learned early on that if you want to have friends, you need to be afraid. I saw more of the get involved, and so I think that's really important for young military is that was it realized that there are a lot of opportunities. I saw more of the world places other, and I think that's really where you make grow is that where your mother and dad realize that there are a lot of opportunities. It may not be that you places successful. So anything you can do to make grow, broaden your horizon. Your mother and dad have been successful, and the military it may not be that you will be successful. So anything you can do to broaden your horizon. I thoroughly enjoyed the military, and the military was one of those things. A very enlightening experience for me. In fact, I personally feel that
joining the military,
it would be good for every young man that's physically able to have to serve joining the military 12 months in the military.
Over the years?
Because I thoroughly enjoyed the military. It was you learn a very enlightening experience. In fact. And you learn. I personally feel that, as I said, it would be good for every young man that's physically able to have to serve at least 12 months in the military. Well, it would depend on what you want to learn do. A lot of discipline. It just depends on your preference there. Responsibility. I really don't know why I chose the Army, but I did. How to, as I said a minute ago, you go in, they test you and determine what areas you're best suited for. Well, it would depend on what you want in those particular areas. I mean, it just depends on your preference.
What did you start doing after you came back from the military?
I really don't know why I chose the Army. When I came back from the military, the first thing I did was you go back to my old employer and determine what areas I was just killing time, really. So I went back to my old employer. And then if there are openings in those particular he wanted to know if I was doing anything. I told him no. He said, well, how about driving a truck? So I started out.
What did you start doing after you came back from the military? I drove a truck for
a few months. Well, when I came back from the military, the first thing I did was go back to my old time that we had all these snows. I was just killing time. Remember that? So back to my old employer. Back in the 60s, he wanted to know if I was doing anything. I told him no. He said, well, how about driving a truck for him? And the snow got so deep up in the mountains that they were a few helicopters dropping hay in and feeding the animals. I drove a truck during those times in the mountains. Time that we had all these snows around. But I started out driving a truck, and I went back to, as I said earlier, to the back in the 60s. We had 4 weeks where it snowed every Wednesday. Correct. And the snow got so deep up in the mountains that there were helicopters were dropping hay in to feed the animals.
What did you make?
So I was driving a truck. We met at a place that was the social gathering place in Caldwell County. But I started out driving the patio or the Kentwood Grill to the furniture factory. It's still there. It's across from the old mall, and it's now a beauty.
Are you married?
Oh yeah, I've been married salon or something now, but it's right there near Western Carolina Electric. Well, we met at a place that was the social gathering place in Caldwell County. It's called the Patio or the Kentwood Grill in Lenore.
Did you think
it's still there? It's across from the old mall, and it's now a beauty.
When did you marry her?
We married in 1964 near Western Carolina.
Did you and your wife have any children?
Kentwood Grill. Oh yeah, we had two. We had 2 sons to hang out. We had one in 1967, and we had one in 1969.
Did you think she was the one when you first met her?
Both boys. We're very proud of them.
When did you marry her?
Oh yeah, we married in 1964. Granddaughter. That was our first grandchild.
Did you and your wife have any children?
She's now 18. Oh yeah, we had two. And I have 3 grandsons. So we had one quite proud of 1967, and we had one in 1969. Fine individuals. Both.
Did you have to have any qualifications when you started getting into the banking business? Do you have any grandchildren?
Well, you need a lot of qualifications. I have 4 grandchildren. I have a granddaughter. That was our first grandchild. She's now 18. Work. And I have 3 you always need and quite proud of all of skills and knowledge. Fine individuals. I think the most important thing to have in any business you go in. You need a lot of qualifications. I mean, what they call people skills. There too depends. It's able to get along where you want to work people. But you always need. You can talk about having a lot of knowledge. You can be the most knowledgeable person in the world. But I think knowledge the most important. You may be the best thing to have today. In any business you go tomorrow, the computers are going to change. It's what they call people. If you don't keep your knowledge up, you're going to be able to get along with people. But if you have developed people skills, you can talk about having a lot of knowledge. You can be the most knowledgeable person and enjoy people. Then you can be a success. Knowledge changes. You may be the best computer man today,
as you became a banker.
But tomorrow the computers are going to change. And if you don't keep your cars, that was in 19 and that was in the latter part of 1963. And can communicate very well. No, I didn't have a bit of trouble. Get along good with people. Now, it would be a different story today. You can be a success. But then, as I told you, I just got out of the military.
Where did you work first as you became a banker?
I had a brown belt and I was the repo man. So I wasn't too concerned about any for the cars. That was in 19. I never had it. Well, I had a lot of fun experiences in 1963. Gone out to repossess cars, and they I didn't have a bit of trouble. Sold their tires. I'd have to go buy 4 tires and put on to pull it back. But then, as I told you, I just got out of the military.
How many years did you spend being a banker?
And I had a brown belt in karate. So I wasn't too concerned about any problems. But fortunately, I never had a job. Had a lot of fun experiences. This was probably the most fun. Gone out to repossess cars, and both of my sons sold their tires. I had to go buy 4 tires and put on to. So I worked for both of them for 4 years, and we worked.
How many years did you spend being a banker?
That was a lot of fun because work is more fun.
Did you have a job after you left the banking business?
Oh yeah, I knew I could walk off at any time. Now this was probably the most fun. So if I needed a job, I worked with both of my sons. And I was the daddy, so I could take off and tell them to do anything I wanted to do. Both of them for 4 years.
Do you have any funny stories that happened over the bank?
That was a lot of fun because work is more fun. Funny stories. Well, let's see. I knew I could walk off at any time. It didn't make a whole lot of difference. So if I needed a day off, I just took a day off. Well, I probably have. And I was the daddy, so I could take off and tell them to do anything I wanted to do. I don't.
Do you have any funny stories that happened over the bank over your time of being a banker?
Well, I'll tell you just one quick funny story. This is directly related to banking. But I was telling you earlier about charge cards. Well, I probably have some. First Union introduced first. Well, there was this man who was a plant manager at Broad Hill Furniture. And back then, they would send out an advertisement. Well, I'll tell you, if you as an individual to take a charge, this is directly related to banking. And they'd put a little. But I was telling you earlier about charge, and they have a name like John Smith. First Union introduced their example. Well, one day I was sitting in my office, and this guy comes in, manager, and he says, and back then they would. Said, I appreciate you sending me that charge card, but you got the wrong name on it, and he threw it down on my desk. And he said, now get me one with the right name on it. And it was that little old pasteboard card that had John Smith's name on it. And then I remember another time. One day I was working in my office, and this guy comes in, and I got a call from a banker in Boone. Well, and he told me that I appreciate you sending me that charge card. A couple of ladies, but you got the wrong name on it, and he threw it down on my desk and closed out. He said, "Now get me one with the right name on it," and it was that little old pasteboard card that had John Smith's name on it. Was just a. And then I remember another time he said, "Be on the lookout for these two ladies at a branch in Lenore. They may want to cash from a banker in the nearest branch, which was mine." And he told me that right after I hung up the phone, there were a couple of ladies up there that had come into the Boone Bank and closed out this individual's account. This person may and they may be on the lookout, gave them the money, and it was just going back to my office. I looked out the door, and he said, "Be on the lookout for these two ladies." And one of them got out, and she was carrying to cash the check at the nearest branch, which was mine. So she came right after I hung up the phone. I walked out to tell my tellers. I had 4 ladies tell the world. Am I going to keep telling that until I can get the police? This person may come in. Well, it just so happened we were going to have a grand opening back to my office. I looked out the door and I saw these, and we were going to give away. And one of them got out, and she was carrying a bank and some other things, and I had a photographer there. So she came in the bank, and he was going to take pictures of the gifts and so forth that we were going to give. And I thought, how in the world? Well, when she was up there, I told the photographer. Well, it just so happened we were going to have the grand opening of the bank. This was again before they had all these surveillance cameras that they have now. So I walked out and I told the lady and some other things. We need to make a photographer there from the this upcoming giveaway. And he was going to take grand pictures of the gifts and so forth. Okay with you. And she said, "Oh yeah, that'd be fine." She was so she just stood there, and I told her, they shot all kind of pictures of her. And before we got through shooting the pictures, the police again was before they had all these surveillance cameras that
Can you describe for me how Western North Carolina used to look like before everything was modernized?
We need to make a few pictures.
Is it any different?
For this Western North Carolina, the things that I wonder if it'd be okay with you. And she said, "Oh yeah, that'd be fine." So she just stood there, and the whole time they shot all kind of pictures of her. And before we got these shooting the pictures, the police walked in and arrested. Now, when I was younger, there
Can you describe for me how Western North Carolina used to look like before everything was modernized?
And they built it in Western North Carolina. The section when I was living down in Winston-Salem, it ended just beyond the changes. So I would drive. Back then, I guess the speed limit was about 60 miles an hour. I could drive on Interstate 40 going to Winston. Now, 60 miles an hour. When I was younger, there was no interstate. And then I'd pull off with the building, hit a little 2-lane road, and drive it all the way into Winston-Salem. Until they completed the section. When I was living down in Winston-Salem, one thing that I remember, it ended just beyond States. This was I would drive about then. I guess the speed limit was about 60 miles an hour. I could drive on the Interstate 40 going about 19 and 60 miles an hour until I got to Statesville, and then I pulled off 66 and hit a little 2-lane road and drive in all the way in north to until they completed the interstate. So that goes right by the college. That I was a 2-lane road. Remember, this was there was very little automobile traffic on it. And being the roustabout that I was as a 15, 16-year-old young man, 5 or 6 to race from Lenore to Hickory, from Lenore to, and we could run from Lenore to Hickory on that 2-lane road, racing about all the way to Hickory. Now was a 2-lane road car. And so those things had very little automobile traffic. And of course, I remember the changes. And being the roustabout that I was in the downtown area, 16-year-old young man, when I was a young man in Lenore, from Lenore to Hickory on that road. And we could run from the monument Hickory on that now set racing about all the way to Hickory of Lenore. You know where it is. A car. Well, it used to be right in the center where the stoplights are. I remember the changes roads come together. And it was a downtown area. So the Saturday night, when all the young people, when I was cars, would go up there and just drive up the monument, circle around the monument, and drive back. The monument was now sets kind of the Saturday night out for us. You know where it is. Well, it used to be right in the center, about 5 miles an hour. Stoplights, and everybody had a vehicle was up together. So the monument, and it was a circular focal place before we went down to the Kentwood Grill. All the young people that had cars would go up there and just drive up, circle around the monument.
Things as rushed then as they are now.
And that was no, not kind of the Saturday fast pace that I remember movie. And back then, say traffic moved at about 5 miles an hour. On Halloween, and everybody that had a vehicle was up there. And so the monument was a focal place before we went down to everybody would line the streets and met our future and back up against the building. And of course, everybody had a paddle in their hand. Rough. And if you got out walking down the street, somebody would pop you on the hindquarter. No, so you moved pretty quick, fast paced. But no, things were not as rushed then was on Halloween. Back then, on Halloween, if Saturday you went to Lenore, time for walk down the streets. Because everybody, most of the population, everybody would line the streets, and of course. And back up against the building. Come to town on Saturday. And of course, everybody had a paddle in their hand. And if you got out walking down the street, somebody would pop you on the hindquarter. It was a big thing. So you moved pretty quick. People would get there early. But no, things were not as rushed. People coming in. Kind of like going to the mall today, where you just kind of Saturday was a big time for business. People coming. Most of the population worked in the furniture factory.
Do you remember any historical events in your
Well, I've already told you I was a little ahead of the Vietnam War, but I knew a lot about the Vietnam War. Shopping they needed to do. Historical events, a big time. I remember in Lenore, it was a big thing that most people would get there early and get a parking place and just watch the people come and go. Kind of like going to the mall today, where you just kind of go down, sit down, and watch. My oldest son, the people come in. He and he was just he was just a small
do you remember
child.
Any historical events in your life?
And
for example,
the night that they walked on the moon,
or the Vietnam War.
He and I stayed up. I already told you I was a little ahead of the Vietnam War to watch him step out. I knew a lot about the Vietnam War. That was like historical events. Remember that? I remember, of course, the assassination of JFK. That was talk about quite a thing. One other big event, and this comes the death of Elvis Presley. Now, that doesn't mean anything to y'all. He and I, he was the death of Elvis Presley was a big He was just a small child. That was an exciting time. And the night that they walked on the further back, he and I stayed up until 2 o'clock in the morning. But things that I remember step out on the moon and see what that was like. I can remember. I remember that. Getting the first telephone, of course, the assassination in our house of JFK. Now everybody has landline phones, and everybody has cell phones. One other big event back when I was a youngster, the death of Elvis Presley. That doesn't mean anything to y'all. Probably about the death of Elvis Presley was a big thing. 13. That was 14 years old before we got a telephone. And to go even and farther back then, when you got a telephone, you were on what was called a party line. Things that I remember personally. And if you picked the phone up to make a call, I can remember, you'd pick it up, and some lady on the other end, the first telephone, would say, "Number please." In our house. She was a local operator. Now everybody has landline phones. She would patch in has cell phone to the number you were calling. Back when I was a youngster, well, if you were on a two-party line, that meant that you were on the line and some other family was on the line. 13. Now, what would happen was you'd get on a conversation with somebody, and back then, when you pick up the phone and listen to your conversation, party line, and you could tell when they picked the phone up because it would click to make a call. And if you talk, you'd pick it up, and some lady on the other end of the line would say, "How about hanging up? I need to make a call." So I remember telephones coming into being to the number you were calling. The next big thing I remember was a two-party line. That meant that you were on the line, and some other family TV started coming in. Back then, what had happened was you'd get on a conversation with somebody, and these other people would pick up the phone and listen to your 3 feet wide, and you could tell the screen in it because it was about a 6-inch screen. And if you talked too long, and somebody on the other end of the line when they watch TV, how about hanging up? I need to make a call. Wednesday nights where so I remember telephones coming into fights. The next our neighbor had a TV, we'd go over, and all the women would get in the kitchen, had a TV, and talk, and the men would go in another room. Coming in and watch the fights. They had a cabinet that was about, and they would close the doors and cut all the lights out. They thought it was a better picture, 2.5 or 3 feet wide. And when the women would open the door and crack a little about a 6-inch screen, shut that door. We can't see this TV. Get out of here. You know, when they watch TV, the big night for the men was Wednesday nights where they had the TV coming on board was a big thing back then. And our neighbor had a TV. And another thing I remember, that all the women would get in the kitchen different and talk, and the men would go in another room. Won't mean anything to you. Watch the fights from what y'all are accustomed to. And they would close the doors and cut all the business. I used to do a lot of work with Rooster Bush. And when the women would open the door and crack a little light in there, the men would work out some banking deals on his car. We can't see this TV. Get out of here. He came in one day and he had a car. But I could loan him money. The TV coming on board was a big thing, depending on the kind of equipment it had. And another thing I remember that whatever model Ford or Chevrolet, and say it'd be worth $5,000, but it'd be different from what y'all are accustomed to. Radio, and if you had when I was in the banking business, I used to do a lot of work with Rooster Bush. Well, he brought one in one day that I would get together once a week and work out some banking deals on his car. I never heard of a car with air conditioning. And he came in one day and he had a car. Rooster. And I could loan him money on the car one day, depending on the kind of equipment it had. A car may be a whatever model Ford and Chevrolet, and say it'd be worth $5,000. But if it had new to me, a radio, and of course, if it had this, there was no such thing as more money to what it offices and that sort of thing. Well, he brought one in one day that had air. So, you know, that was a big event for me. The computers. I never heard of a car. That also was a big event because in my work it made us. And he said this, he said, "Guy, one day you will not be able to buy a car without air conditioning."
Did they affect you in any way?
Like now, air conditioning is like hell. They affect everybody has it directly. But that was something new about every way. And of course, said in our business, no such thing as the home greatly affected offices, and because we went from spending 2 days. That was a big event for me. Calculating interest to be paid on that also was a big event to push in that work being done automatically. So we're doing a lot more. And actually, the telephone, you can imagine how life would be without telephone. Those are some of the things that stand out. Summers were pretty uncomfortable without air conditioning too. You know, you could raise the window.
Did they affect you in any way?
You didn't get a little breeze. It was still pretty hot. Well, they affected me.
Do you think you have any regrets in your life?
In about every way. I guess a lot of people have businesses. Greatly affected on certain things because we went from spending 2 days a quarter calculating interest to be paid on a savings account, a very good pushing the button and it being done automatically. Exciting. So and actually the telephone, you can imagine how life would be without the biggest regret that I have. Summers were pretty uncomfortable without air conditioning. Continue my raise the window, but to the maximum. Didn't get a little breeze. It was still pretty hot. Now, as far as the outcome of my life,
do you think you have any regrets in your life?
I ended up, fortunately, well, I guess probably a lot of people have regrets, as I would have been if I had had my education completed college. I don't have many, gone on to get advanced degrees. But that is highly unusual. A very good life. Without that, for me, it's been an exciting life. Could not have the opportunities that I was one. I guess the biggest regret that I have.
Would you do it all over again?
Was that I did not continue my education. In fact, I said that at my retirement party. Now, as far as the outcome of my life, they gave me a big party. I ended up. When I made my closing remarks, I said, well,